Welcome to my midweek episode of Real Women's Stories. This episode has a slightly different format and quite exciting for me. So I interviewed Toni Eastwood when I had the pleasure of being in Spain most recently, and we discussed me taking part and working through her WOOP formula, which I am going to share with you. And I'm going to talk through my WOOP, what my big wish is, and Toni's going to coach me on how to rethink each section of my WOOP. She's going to take me through the process, which could then help you take your wish and make it happen. So in this week's episode, this is all about Toni and I going through my WOOP and creating my dream and making it happen. We met in Mijas in Spain when I was out there over Christmas. It was actually the new year, and we had a great interview together. You interviewed me and I interviewed you.
Yeah.
And what we thought as we came out the interview, what would be amazing is if I went through your WOOP formula with you, which you've created and you use in your coaching practice and you use in your retreats, with all your wonderful ladies to empower them. And I will share with everyone that I did find it uncomfortable because your WOOP is wish, outcome, obstacles, and plan. If I've got that right, Toni?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay,
yes.
Brilliant. And your wish, though, you said to me, dream as big as you can dream. Like, what is your absolute, ultimate wish?
Yeah.
So being quite vulnerable and sharing this with the listeners, I've obviously come up with my content. Do you, before we launch into it, do you want to give the listeners any I guess pointers before we go through this, or would you like to make any comments?
Yeah, I'll just add to what you said. So I won't claim it as my own, Lisa, because it isn't.
Okay.
But it comes from the work of a positive psychologist called Gabriella Oettingen, and she's written a great book called Rethinking Positive Thinking. And within that, she talked about the research into how do you create successful lives? How do we make our wishes come true? And she thought that was all about positive thinking, which we probably all really know. You have to put a bit of work in, and you have to take action to make your dreams come to life. But it was more than that. Her research found that you have to rub things up against reality, and that makes you more successful. So what she came up with was a very clever, very simple tool called WOOP. And it stands for wish, outcome, obstacle, and plan. So yes, that is an amazing tool. You can use it strategically, or you can use it just to 2-minute WOOP in the shower. What are you going to get out of today? So yeah, that's the process you've been through. And what we're going to go through now is what I would do with all my clients is get them to either go away, or while they're on a session with me, we work on this. And then I will give you feedback, stretch and challenge, so that you and the listeners can really take this away and kind of make it work for them.
Fabulous. I'm really excited. I'm sure that everyone is excited to hear what my WOOP is. And
Yes.
it should, as you say, help people go away and actually start working on their own stuff.
Yeah.
Or their own big dreams, or as
Absolutely.
you say, you know, if it's a day-to-day thing in the shower, if it's a quick kind of thought process that you can go through. So you can use it on a smaller scale, or you can use it on a bigger scale, which is what I really like. So you can adapt it to where you are, I guess, in your life at the moment.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So where I'm at the moment is trying to grow this podcast. I'm embarking on a full-time career with my coaching and my podcast, and leaving my 9 to 5, which I have enjoyed, but now it's time to concentrate on me. So this is my wish. This is my big dream. And I feel I feel quite, I don't know. I'm just getting feelings of a bit of embarrassment over it, because when
Yeah.
you speak the words, it's my big dream, and I don't want people to think I'm egotistical or anything like that. So hopefully, yeah, I'm just going to go with it, because I'm sure everyone's going, just get
Yeah.
on with it.
Well,
Right.
before you do that, Lisa, I know you were like we're gearing up, but that is really natural how
Okay.
you're feeling, because one of the things that does get in our way is we get in our own way. So basically, what you're feeling is kind of you getting in your own way, and as you start to think about what it is you really want to create, you in your head you've got that person or sitting on your shoulder going, "Who do you think you are, Lisa, saying these things?" But just know it's not you. It's like common humanity. We all do that. And I invite everyone and you to like kind of let go of that when you're writing and your wish, because we don't want to worry about the how. We just want to be talking about the what it is we want to create, and kind of not let the fears and doubts get in the way of that.
Mm, right. I think that's really important for people to hear, because that,
Yeah.
and I think, and I did message you. I
Yeah,
did
you
message you,
did.
and I said I felt really uncomfortable. So I think I WhatsApp voice noted you, and you were like,
Yeah.
it's completely natural, just do it.
Yeah.
So this is my wish: to become a household name as the Real Women Coach with my Real Women Stories podcast, combining my move to Spain, using my UK home as a base when I'm working in person in the UK.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Excellent.
that's my wish. And some people may be like, oh, okay. I thought it was going to be something different. But this is it, to be a household name as a Real Women Coach. I really want to grow this podcast. I really want to be, women kind of chatting. Did you hear that episode? How much it helped me? Did you hear that? Yes, on the lips, and sharing it with their families, so that husbands and kids can understand what they're potentially going through. So that's my kind of thought process. I'm rebranding from Look Up with Lisa to The Real Woman Coach, as that being my full-time kind of career as well, to run alongside the podcast. And it just made sense to change the name so they align together. And then moving to Spain, I do have a home there. I want to spend more time there. So it's just kind of getting over those obstacles of, having enough income, having enough work that I can afford to be over there more, and make sure my family are settled in the UK, my kids, in a smaller property in the UK.
Okay, so before you talk about the obstacles, so I'm going to get you to go through your whole WOOP, and then I'm going to give you feedback on each individual part. So before you talk about those obstacles, the next O in WOOP stands for outcome. So
Okay.
what did you have down for that?
Right. So, and this is where I get a bit like, oh, um, feature on TV programs to promote my podcast and podcasting as a new form of media, because I don't feel that enough people are listening to podcasts at the moment. But when they do get into it, they're really enjoying it. Create live audience podcast shows which can be streamed. So to have a live studio audience, to have guests in, people can, the audience can comment, and then we can put it out on the podcast. Two, this is a bit cringe, but to win an award within the podcast industry, encouraging more women to listen to podcasts and help to grow the industry again as a new form of media. To have a slot on a TV program as the Real Woman Coach, like maybe Loose Women, or kind of in the morning, just to, I guess they have therapists and they do have coaches. It would be great to be able to do that on TV, which will then gain traction with listeners for the podcast. To work with, and this now goes on to my coaching, to work with a number of high profile female leaders as clients across several industries, to, I guess, work with them in the C-suite arena, supporting women, empowering women to move up into those really high profile roles, so that as women, we carry a lot of shit going on in our heads, but to be the best version of themselves when they're pitching, when they're in those meetings with other high profile, account directors, CEOs within the C-suite, and helping them, supporting with their personal development. From gaining high profile female clients, I would put I would put a little bit of money away so I can then sponsor several females to prepare them for future work life, offering my coaching in colleges and universities to encourage more women to become leaders and move up in the C-suite. So it's kind of starting from the bottom and helping, young women up through. So that's the kind of outcome.
Yeah. Okay. I'll give you feedback when you've
Okay.
given me it all.
Right. So obstacles, how to encourage more women listeners to get to guest on my podcast, how to obtain more listeners so I can gain sponsors to invest back into the podcast, because as we know, the podcast costs us money. In order for us to get a sponsor, we need more listeners. So I need to have more listeners in order to pitch to a sponsor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Create publicity and followers to obtain media status. Gaining more clients, working with leaders in the C-suite arena. How to sell my Big C training program, which I'm putting together. Communication, collaboration, co-networking, and confidence. That's all aimed at co-workers who are living currently in the dysfunctional way of hybrid working and trying to get people back into the office and communicating, collaborating, co-networking, and giving people confidence to do that. And then selling the show live, selling the show to a live studio audience as well. Like, how am I going to do that? And obviously, how do I contact people within the TV industry to get the podcast and get myself out there into the TV world? My plan is one of them was to target women in the media industry. So to get them on the podcast and link them in with the podcast, because I think I have family who work in TV and I know that industry is quite fickle, it's quite difficult. And it would be really good to coach people within the media industry as well, women, as well as other women in other industries. But that was one of my plans to, specifically target those women. Create a marketing plan to include direct marketing and creating I put publicity stunt to gain more viewers, but it's kind of a big PR campaign to get more people. I feel that I think social media is great, but it doesn't get you to get people to follow and listen to your podcast. People will look at your page and then they'll consider it. Everyone's in a rush. So I want to get out in the public domain. I want to practice what I preach, to stand out in shopping centres, railway stations, promote the podcast and start interacting with women and asking them questions so they can then appear on have their little interview on the podcast, which should gain more traction in terms of them sharing it with their friends and go, oh, I was on this podcast the other day, take a listen to it. It's really interesting. So creating sort of marketing around that. And that's really where I got to on my plan, because there's a lot in here that I need to break down into sections. And I think the plan is probably going to be the bit that I need to spend the most amount of time on.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, I love that, Lisa. How did you feel once you'd got that all on paper?
I felt that it was more real and I felt more empowered. And I went to a family function yesterday and there were people asking me, what are you doing? And that's exactly what I said. So I'm now speaking my wish. So I'm speaking my truth and I'm putting it out there to the universe. And once you've spoken it, you kind of got to get into action with it now and make it happen. And my mind, when I started writing it as well, my creative mind was just throwing, it was a bit like a Space Invaders game. I was walking down the street going, I know what I could do. I know what I could do. So putting it out there into the universe, first of all, speaking, it gives me empowerment. Secondly, it started to put me into action and my creativity started flowing.
Yeah, yeah. And it's so powerful. So are you up for me giving you a bit of stretch and challenge for you and for the listeners, to so that we can, when we write our whoops, that it can really, really help us like be much more powerful. Okay. So first of all, with you, and again, Lisa, this isn't because it's you, everyone I work with, no matter how long I spend with them before giving them sort of instructions, which I know we didn't have a lot of time. We did this sort of like live on the podcast recording. They always do this. So it's knowing that everyone does this, and it's like not you. And I'm saying this to the listeners as well, because this is what happens. So when we're writing our wish, what I'd invite you to do is to kind of go back to it and write it as if it's already happened. So the way you've written it is to become. So if you think about the language, to become this, and it's a great wish. There's nothing wrong with the wish, but write it as if it's already happened, from a point in the future that you would like it to happen by. So I'm going to ask you, when has this happened? By when?
By next year.
Okay, so we're talking 2026. Now
Or
now
can
2020.
well, I kind of no, because my brain started again. So I was thinking about the podcast, and then I was thinking about, oh my God, and I'm just telling you how I'm feeling, because maybe somebody else might feel the
Yes.
same. As you said, I went next year and I was like, oh, maybe that's a bit too ambitious.
And then you see you get in your way again.
Yeah, maybe that's
Don't you?
too
Like
ambitious. How am I
yeah,
going to push this to next year? In
yeah,
my head, I'd love it to be next year.
yeah.
In my mind, it's saying 3 years, but I know that
Okay.
part of it, I have to get a sponsor in order to carry on the podcast. So it kind of has to be next year, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. So this is what we do as well. So like some of that'll be getting in your own way, and as you've said it out loud, you go, "Oh, that's quite fearful," because that's either 12 months away or even less. Depends when next year. Um, but also, if you think about it, I say dream big, go big, hairy, audacious, but also you want to think to yourself, well, okay, is this realistic to try and achieve all of that in 1 year? Or is this better as a 18-month goal, or 2 year, 5 year, or whatever that feels like? Actually, that feels like it's good. And like getting the sponsor would be one of the steps on the way.
Mm.
And that might be next year, or building your audience is one of the steps on the way. And that's going to be over the next 12 months. But it really, if you go with your gut, when would you really like this to happen by? And if it is next year, that is okay.
By the end of next year, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And that's what I would say as well. If we don't just put like a year in, we actually put a date. So I'm going to ask you, what date next year? Or this, what
Yeah.
date next year?
I think, I'm very much, I would say December next year, like by
Okay.
Christmas next year. I think that's a really good way to end the year, that I could come back to this
Yeah.
episode and listen to it and go, have I achieved my
I
woo?
did it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 25th of December, 2026. So we've got a date there. Okay. And what I want you to do is just to have a think, and then reword this. So it says something like this. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it's that you say it's December the 25th, 2026. And I am now a household name as the Real Women Coach. My podcast is, going to, what sort of size audience would you like it to be? I'm living in Spain full time. I'm delivering some of my work in the UK, some of it, might be elsewhere. I've got a live TV audience show twice a year. Or do you know what I mean? Like you're
Yeah.
talking like you've already done it.
Okay. Right. So it's December the 25th, 2026. I have achieved my WOOP. I am now a household name as the Real Women Coach with my Real Women Stories podcast. I am now going to be appearing twice monthly on a TV program, on a morning show TV program. I have 7 high profile clients, both in the media industry and who are part of the C-suite arena. I am now delivering, and I've got more masterclasses booked for next year. 20 masterclasses per year at the moment, and I've got more booked for next year with my Lisa's Big C's. Lisa's 4 Big C's, going into offices. And I have just secured my first booking for my live show, which will be in April 2027.
Hey, brilliant. So does that feel different and better than how you had it before?
Yeah, it feels more exciting. It still feels a bit, I feel nervous saying it, but it does feel more exciting, and it does feel, now I've spoken it, I've said it, but actually I've put dates on it. So it kind of feels, yeah, I can make this happen, and I've got a timescale now. So to have now the strategy and the structure to do all of that.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the power of it. And actually, as you were speaking it, so before you kind of was saying it, but you didn't come to life when you said it. When you said it that way, you kind of came to life, and feeling it. And the idea really is that you do get that little bit of like, oh my God, I'm a little bit nervous. It's a little bit, whoa. Because if you don't get that, you're not going to get out of bed every morning and do all the hard work that, this isn't going to just come overnight, is it? You're going to have to put the work in, but you need something to drive you. So that feeling that you got when you were talking about it puts you there. And our brains don't know the difference between whether that's real or not. And this is where, you said about you feel like it seems achievable, that you feel empowered. And then before, when you were talking about it, you said you feel like you know what the actions are, and sort of ideas come to your head. And that is something that we call the reticular activating system. It's part of our brain that does become the magnet to spot the opportunities to get you where you want to go to. So this is why this creating that wish is so important, to get as granular as you can, to talk as if you've already achieved it, and to like really detail what that's like, where you are, what you're doing, what you're wearing, who you're with, who you're working with, how much you're earning, like get that granular. So what I would invite you to do, and anyone else doing this, is to go back, rewrite this almost as if it's a letter to yourself from back then. Say this is everything that you're now doing, how you're living your day, what your great days look like, get really, really granular. So that is your wish. Okay. When we come to the outcome, so again, you did what a lot of people do. You kind of put a lot of things in there that are really part of your wish. Like, I've got a TV show, I've won an award, I've got a slot on a TV program. So most of those things I would write into your wish. And then the outcome is about what does it achieve for you personally. Like, so you feel inspired, you feel, I don't know, excited. It's enabled you to have the life that you want with your family, that flexibility. It's enabled you to have the money that you want to earn. And this is one thing, especially for women, that we get fearful about writing down,
What, the
because
financial side of things?
yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. No,
um,
I'm happy to share that, because
yeah,
yeah, I'm happy to share all of that. So if I think about the outcome, I would say that by achieving my wish, it has provided me with the life that I dreamed of, to be living in Spain most of the year, to have used all my skills that I feel that I've had throughout my whole life, but never really put them to purpose and to use, and to feel that I'm doing something good in the community and providing a life for my family financially, so that my husband can take a step back as well. And a home and a house and a home where my friends and family can come and visit me and have some really real quality time. That's my purpose of moving to Spain, is because I never have enough time in the UK, but I'm sure that when people come and stay with me, I will then create the space for them and spend more time with my friends and time with my family. So have little weekends. And really, the TV thing comes into it because I trained at drama school when I was younger, and my whole dream from a very, very young age, and also the live shows, was to be on stage and be on TV. So to be able to use the podcast as, I guess an anchor for that, for me to do this as, at 50, to really feel achieved. I've always wanted to achieve things in my life. So all of those feelings will I guess, be my outcome.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So can you see the difference between like an outcome for you as opposed to something that you will be doing
Yeah.
that's in your wish? But again, you can still get quite granular on that, and like how you feel and like that level of achievement, level of success, being able to do something that gives back or provides a service. All of those things are an outcome
Yeah. Yeah,
of
definitely.
you achieving that.
100%.
So that's brilliant. So this is where this model now kind of really, this is the difference between traditional, let's put a goal out there, let's put a dream, or something that you want to achieve. A lot of people like the secret, that of manifesting is like all about putting that wish out there.
Mhm.
But this is where the difference happens. So one of the things that Gabriella Oettingen found in her research was when you just put a wish out there, even talking about your outcomes, what it achieved for you, if we don't do this next bit, what happens is we can get demotivated,
Okay.
because suddenly we're like doing all of those things that you did at the beginning, which was like, oh my God, what if I can't do it? And all of those things. And we get fearful. So what she talks about is the next O in the model of WOOP is obstacles, is actually to really look at those and to get them out there, and to start to look at, okay, I know stuff's going to get in the way, but most importantly, it's what it is it about you that's going to get in the way of you achieving that goal? So you have put all of the things there that, like getting an audience. How do you do, the marketing? How do you create the publicity? All of those things absolutely are going to be obstacles. But what else might be obstacles for you about you that's going to stop you?
Oh, okay, that's interesting. I think it would be financial. Is that
Yeah,
one? Am I allowed to say that? Or not allowed,
yeah.
but yeah, that comes into it.
Absolutely.
So
It's
so
being realistic, isn't
Yeah,
it?
so I think finances are massive, because in order to in order to put a campaign together, in order to market myself, that costs money. In order to keep the podcast going, that costs money. If I don't find a sponsor, I've got to find a way of carrying it on. The other thing would be, I have a couple of house moves to do. So my time is going to be potentially strained over the next 6 months a little bit. Um, I think time and money are the two biggest things for me. Um, Potentially some further self-development. Not potential, probably do. I mean, we're always learning, you know, as a life coach, I have a coach. Again, that's a financial implication. But it's like, how do I enhance my skills? Do I need to have live speaking skills in order to do the live audience shows? Yes, I'm not afraid to go out and speak, but I've got to make it entertaining, invigorating, you know, and I've got to be able to communicate with a live studio audience, which is very different from doing a podcast.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But is there, so that's a skill, and that's an area that, yeah, absolutely, you can develop your skills if you feel like that they're going to get in the way. But is there anything else that kind of, you know, about maybe your personality or things like some of those fears and doubts that you had originally when you were writing the Whoop
Mm.
or the Wish? What might some of those be that are going to get in your way?
I think it would be support, to have a support network around me, because I, like anyone else, and I will share this, I was meant to podcast yesterday before a family function. I'd been working in the morning doing some coaching, and I got thrown by something. Something just didn't sit right with me. I don't know what it was. And all of a sudden, I remember what it was. Something happened. I didn't achieve what I wanted to achieve within my coaching session with my client, and it got to me. It upset me, and because it upset me, I then literally could not podcast because my self confidence just went down. We had everyone in the house running around. Normally, like today, everyone's quiet. They would have been quiet, but I just felt off. I just didn't feel right. And I just suddenly lost my confidence. And, you know, people that I was speaking to yesterday, so how's it all going? And I was speaking to, I think it was my stepdad, and he was like, "Oh, it's going great, it's great." And I was like, "Yeah, but I couldn't do it today. I didn't feel right." And he was like, "Why?" Yeah, I went, "Oh, I don't know. I just something happened and I just kind of lost myself a bit." And I know that I need that encouragement and feedback to kind of keep me going. So I do need a bit of a support system to say, you know, you can do this. You just had an off day. And I did. I sort of spoke to myself in the mirror and like gave myself a talking to, as we do. And I knew that today I'd be okay, but there are going to be those days. And sometimes you have to get on and do it. I can't let that ego in my head tell me I'm not good enough and not be able to do something.
Yeah, yeah. And that's really important. So I think you know, yes, time, yes, finance, yes, skills, all of those are obstacles, and you can see what you might be able to do in your plan to, you know, look at, well, okay, how do I manage my time better, or how do I build in the time to do, you know, the house moves, and recognize that I can only do certain amounts of things at once, and being realistic around that. You know, finances, you can look at, well, okay, how can I build something else that is going to bring it, or build the business so that it brings in the money to have these, and you know what that needs to look like in terms of the amount of money that you need to do things. But when it comes down to the nub of it, it is about like that accountability, that support, and knowing that you, even on your best days, can have an off moment, or even have a bad day and have an lots of off moments, where even if all of that's happening, you've got to think about what it is that you're going to do when that happens to you, because it will happen. Life always happens to us. And we will have moments where we're thinking, oh, do you know what? That just doesn't feel right. I don't feel like I'm on it, or whatever. Life throws. I always say, when you're on a quest to do something really big, you don't sidestep lizards, you have to fight dragons. And it's almost a reverse indicator, because that you've now put out there a really big goal, and sometimes that'll make you feel even worse on some days, because you'll be thinking, oh my God, you know, like, I've actually now put this out to a big audience, and I've got to hold my feet to the fire. So rightly so, you've said, well, if that happens, then I've got a coach, I can speak to my coach. If something like yesterday happened, you know that you can pick yourself up, talk to yourself in the mirror. I've still got on my mirror in my office in lipstick, "You can do this." Because I had a session, I think I mentioned it to you before. I wasn't delivering my own material before. I had someone that would deliver for me. And it was COVID. She was really ill and she couldn't deliver the session. So I had to pick it up and run with it. And I'd actually never done it before. But it was my material, my research. I knew it inside out, but I had to write that message on my own mirror to myself do it. So like we always do, we always will have days like that. So this is where the plan comes in terms of Gabriella calls them implementation intentions. So it's like an algorithm. If this happens, which it inevitably will, so like I have a crisis of confidence or something knocks me back, someone might say something that you think, oh God, I'm not, that's made me feel really, insecure or rubbish or emotional. What am I going to do about that? How do I flip the switch on that and get out of it and bounce back quicker than I would normally do, not allow it to get to me for too long. So that's what your plan is about, is like, if this happens, then this is what I'm going to do. If that happens, then this is what I'm going to do. If I need to build some skills, then I'm going to look for a course. Um, One of the things that I will say, Lisa, is a lot of people, when they're writing their plan and to a big, wildly important goal, start to reel back and say, oh, maybe I need some training. Maybe I'm not good enough to do this yet. So I would actually always push back and say, do you really need training to pitch up and deliver when you've had all your training for, your drama and that? It is, really think about that. Do you really need that? Or is that another like level of self-confidence or lack of confidence going, do you know what? I won't do this until I've done a bit more training. And we can just keep doing more and more and more and more training and actually never get on and do it. And the only thing that really does build our confidence is to get on and do it.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
no, you're right. You're right. Yeah, you're right. So I will go back and question that, because I
yeah,
think it is a case of me practicing myself and me, when you're delivering something live, you do have a bit more of a scripted
yeah,
scenario, and it's just, learning that script and taking it off the paper like I would do if I was acting or performing, because
yeah,
you are performing more when you're live because you have a
yeah,
much bigger audience to reach.
yeah.
So yeah, that's interesting you said that. You're right. So that ego in my head's telling me
Yeah,
I need to
you
tell
do
it to
not,
go away.
I would say to you, like, if, because I know you a little bit, but not a lot, but like, I would say, I don't believe you need that extra training. You need to get in, you need to do it, and I always say, go and do your first crappy one. And it's not gonna be crappy. It's not gonna be, but you get feedback and then you change, you iterate and you move on to the next time and you go, well, what could I have done better in that scenario? I like that went really well, or that needs a bit of work. And then you do it differently the next time, or you just build. It's a bit like the podcast, I don't know if you're like me. When I started mine, I took a year before I actually started mine. I got a name, I got a concept. I actually lined up a load of guests, and then I'm like, oh, I really don't think I could do this. And I just never did it for a whole year. And then I just thought, get out of your way, Tony,
Yeah.
and get
Yeah.
on and do it.
Absolutely, and you are brilliant as well. So yeah, you
Oh,
need not think that. No, I was a bit different. I think I don't know what happened. I just turned 50, and I've just decided I'm just going to get on and do things. And
yeah,
mine happened very, very, very quickly through the meetings of minds of some people that I met through my coaching group. And
yeah,
yeah, so but they not but and because we never
yeah,
say but, and they've given me great support throughout my journey and really given me some good feedback as well.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I love listening to your show, and I
Oh,
love your little extra weekly moments as well. So, how has this been for you then, Lisa?
it do you know what? It has been really, really helpful. And because I have put it out there now, I do feel more empowered. I was actually really nervous before I came and I was a bit shaky. I was like, "Oh God, I've got to speak this stuff now." Or speak this. I have to say my dream, my WOOP, and this has been really interesting, especially thinking about the outcome, and it's about how I feel and how it makes me feel. It's not the practicalities of, bullet pointing what I did, or all the different kind of scenarios. It is about how I feel. And I think when you do put your personal feelings into things, again, with the obstacles, it was about me and how I felt. It really
Uh-huh.
wasn't those practicalities of time and finances, because you can get through those, you can cut through those. But it's only me that can really, really control and change my mindset of when I'm
Yeah.
having a bad day. What support network or system am I going to put in place for myself to keep me actioning, keep me in
Yeah.
action? Yeah,
Yeah.
I found it really, really interesting. Really interesting. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.
And to carry on with the proper coaching methodology is like, so what's important next for you to do? What action are you going to take as a result of today?
I'm going to rewrite my WOOP, and I'm going to start really breaking it down in terms of goals, giving myself some timelines. So this is really going to help me when I leave my full-time job,
Yeah.
and I can start planning that first month. What is it I'm going to be doing, and how am I going to keep myself motivated and have this, plan in place and my support network in place? So breaking down my WOOP into goal settings and creating a plan for each element of what I'm going to be doing. And
Yeah.
I will continue to look back on that weekly to make sure that, because I think that's really important as well. When we're
Yes.
in action, reflect at the end of the week, take a couple of hours, 2 hours
Mm.
on a Friday afternoon when the world starts quieting down, to have
Yeah.
some of me time to go, right, what have I done this week? Why haven't I achieved it? What can I take over to next week? And what's my priorities for next week?
Yeah. 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 That's really powerful. Well, I'm really excited for you, Lisa. I've loved working with you on this. And one of the things about, you said breaking it down, this is the beauty of WOOP. So if you break it down, you can do another WOOP on the little things. So like if you've got another goal, write it as a WOOP.
Yeah.
And then your plan falls out very easily.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see how that can transition. I'm literally, I don't know. I'm not nervous anymore, and I do feel
Good.
more empowered, and I'm excited. Really, really excited now, because this dream will become my reality. As
Absolutely.
we do use that phrase. Do you want your dream to become a reality? Absolutely, hell yeah. High five to that. And I think
Yeah.
anybody who is sitting here listening and thinking, I've got this dream, but I'm feeling small right now, just get big, have your voice, do what I've done. I've put myself out there. I really have put myself
Yeah.
out there. If I can do it, then you can. And if somebody does want some help with their WOOP, you can contact Toni, because I'm sure she would be more than happy to, talk you through your WOOP the way that, you've talked me
Yeah.
through mine.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's been a pleasure, Lisa, and I'm really looking forward to you being a neighbour up the road,
Yay!
and we can spend more time together, and also just watching your process and progress through achieving it. And I want to be at that first live show.
Absolutely. You'll have front row ticket seats waving at me.
It's going in my diary.
What an absolute eye opener that was. I really did feel vulnerable to begin with, but as I went through my WOOP, I became more excited, and I am just super excited to start my journey, to start creating my goals, setting a plan in place. And I'm excited to look back on this episode on December the 25th, 2026, where I will be a household name as the Real Woman Coach. And I would have grown this podcast in terms of now having guest appearances on TV programs, and having my booking for April 2027 for my live studio audience, where you guys can come and see me live and interact with me, with my guests on Real Women's Stories. How exciting is that? I'm nervous, but yeah, it's exciting. Listen, if anybody would like to create their WOOP with either me or with Toni, you can get in touch with us. Toni's details will be in the show notes of this episode of the podcast. But if you want to email me and I can give you Toni's details, or if you want to chat to me, the email address is TheRealStoriesPodcast@gmail.com. It's TheRealStoriesPodcast@gmail.com. I am excited to embark on my WOOP, and I would love to hear from you. And give us a follow and share this episode with your friends, anyone who you think could really benefit from doing their own WOOP. And I will see you next week for my next episode of Real Women Stories. Get going on your WOOPs.